Imagine if one day you woke up, opened Google Maps, and realized Australia was just gone. Not moved, not renamed, just completely vanished. Kinda makes you wonder who took hide and seek a little too seriously, huh? Well, believe it or not, that's exactly what some people believe happened with the lost continent of Mu. Back in the late 19th century, a man named Augustus Le Plongeon claimed he had discovered evidence of an ancient advanced civilization that called Mu home, a massive continent in the Pacific Ocean that allegedly sank beneath the waves thousands of years ago. Why? Obviously, because nothing says historical mystery like catastrophic earthquakes and disappearing land masses. It was a time when science and imagination were in a long-distance relationship, mostly because people were making up theories faster than facts could catch up. And amidst all this, the story of Mu was born, sparking debates, inspiring novels, and giving conspiracy theorists enough fuel to last centuries. Welcome to Infinitia Verity, where we untangle historical mysteries, one wild theory at a time. If you're ready for a tale of sunken continents, misunderstood archaeology, and more speculation than a flat Earth convention, then let's dive right in. Where and when? Our story begins in the 19th century, an era of exploration, discovery, and, let's be honest, some pretty questionable archaeology. Imagine a world where digging up ancient ruins was basically the Victorian version of a treasure hunt, and historical accuracy was more of a suggestion than a rule. It was a time when adventurers, scholars, and armchair historians were racing to solve the mysteries of humanity's past. And nothing got people more excited than the idea of a lost civilization. What was happening? In Europe and America, there was a growing obsession with the origins of civilization. Scholars were trying to piece together human history using fragments of pottery, old manuscripts, and a whole lot of imagination. Meanwhile, the theory of Atlantis was already making waves, thanks to Plato's ancient writings. So when Augustus Le Plongeon came along with tales of Mu, people were ready to believe anything, even if it meant accepting that an entire continent had just packed up and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Key players. Enter Augustus Le Plongeon. Who was he? An eccentric photographer, amateur archaeologist, and the kind of guy who probably spent way too much time staring at ancient carvings until they started to look like secret messages. He was convinced that the Mayan civilization was linked to an even older, more advanced culture, one that originated from Mu. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Le Plongeon believed he could decode ancient Mayan texts to reveal the history of Mu, which, considering he didn't actually understand Mayan language, was about as accurate as trying to translate Shakespeare with Google Translate on a bad Wi-Fi day. As Le Plongeon continued his work in the Yucatan Peninsula, he became more convinced that the Mayans were descendants of survivors from Mu, a land he claimed was destroyed by a massive cataclysm. According to him, this lost continent was not only the birthplace of humanity but also the cradle of all ancient knowledge. He was so sure of his theory that he published books about it, claiming that Mu's wisdom spread to Egypt, India, and even Easter Island. And people believed him, mostly because his ideas were more exciting than the boring academic papers of his time. First, Le Plongeon translated Mayan symbols as evidence of Mu's existence. Never mind that his translations were based on wild guesses and wishful thinking. Then, he argued that the ancient Egyptian civilization got its knowledge from Mu via the Mayans, which is kind of like saying your pet goldfish taught Einstein about relativity. Next, other writers jumped on the Mu bandwagon, expanding the story. In the early 20th century, James Churchward claimed he had found ancient tablets in India that detailed Mu's history, including its rise as a super-advanced society and its ultimate destruction by volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. In short, Churchward's theory was like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of lost continents. It had ancient astronauts, advanced technology, and a tragic backstory. The only thing missing was a supervillain. Churchward wrote, "These tablets reveal the truth of Mu's civilization," which, roughly translated, means, I really hope no one asks to see these tablets because, they don't exist anymore. And then, things really spiraled. In the early 20th century, James Churchward took the tale of Mu to a whole new level. He claimed that while stationed in India, he was shown ancient tablets written in a long-lost language called Nakal. According to him, a high priest taught him how to translate these tablets, which supposedly detailed the entire history of Mu, a massive continent in the Pacific Ocean that was home to 64 million people. Yes, million. Because why make up a lost continent if you're not going to give it a population the size of modern France? First, Churchward's story went something like this. Mu was a paradise, a tropical utopia with fertile lands, advanced technology, and a highly developed society. Think Atlantis meets Wakanda, but with more palm trees. The people of Mu were incredibly intelligent and spiritually enlightened, which naturally meant they were all tall, good-looking, and probably spent their weekends meditating under waterfalls. Then came the disaster. According to Churchward, around 12,000 years ago, Mu was hit by a series of catastrophic volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. The continent literally cracked apart, sinking into the ocean in one night. People were panicking. Temples were collapsing, and the world's first real estate market crash was happening. Only this time, it was the land itself that was disappearing. Finally, the survivors of Mu supposedly fled to various parts of the world, spreading their knowledge to places like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. Churchward claimed this was why these ancient civilizations had similar architectural styles and mythologies. Basically, his explanation for pyramids in both Egypt and Mesoamerica was, oh yeah, that's Mu's trademark design. Of course, the academic community's reaction was a collective, wait, what? Archaeologists and geologists immediately questioned Churchward's story, pointing out the complete lack of physical evidence. But Churchward doubled down, publishing multiple books on Mu that became bestsellers. Why? Because who doesn't love a good mystery with a dash of pseudoscience? In one of his books, Churchward boldly claimed, the lost continent of Mu was the birthplace of mankind. That's a pretty big statement, especially considering the lack of evidence. But hey, in his defense, this was a time when people also believed the world was hollow and full of dinosaurs. Historical accuracy was having a rough decade. Oh, and here's a fun little twist. Churchward also claimed that the Nakal tablets were kept in an Indian temple that was destroyed in a fire, conveniently making it impossible for anyone else to verify his findings. It's almost like the ancient equivalent of, oh no, my dog ate my homework. Essentially, Churchward's tale of Mu was a masterclass in creative storytelling. He linked Mu to everything from the Egyptian pyramids to Easter Island's Moai statues, arguing that they were all remnants of a lost global civilization. Think of it as the ancient aliens theory, but without the aliens, just really well-traveled ancient architects. But here's the kicker. Geologists have thoroughly studied the Pacific Ocean's floor, and guess what? There's absolutely no evidence of a sunken continent the size of Mu. No underwater ruins, no massive landmass remnants, just a lot of fish and some volcanic islands. In other words, Mu is as real as Middle-earth or Narnia, only with fewer talking lions. Yet, despite the overwhelming lack of evidence, the legend of Mu refuses to sink. It's been kept afloat by New Age beliefs, conspiracy theories, and the occasional History Channel documentary that uses the words, could it be? way too often. To sum it up, the story of Mu went from one man's mistranslations to a full-blown pseudo-historical phenomenon. It was like a historical game of telephone, where each retelling got a little wilder. By the end, Mu wasn't just a lost continent. It was the birthplace of humanity, the mother of all civilizations, and a utopia that inspired ancient myths worldwide. Not bad for a place that, scientifically speaking, never existed. So, what happened after Churchward's books became bestsellers? Well, despite the academic world collectively face-palming, the public was hooked. The idea of a lost continent inspired everything from adventure novels to Hollywood movies. In the 1930s, pulp fiction was obsessed with Mu, turning it into a mythical land of treasure and danger like Atlantis, but with more lava. The story of Mu didn't just influence pop culture, it also shaped New Age spiritualism. Writers in the mid-20th century started claiming that Mu's inhabitants were highly advanced beings with psychic abilities. Apparently, sinking into the ocean wasn't enough. They had to become ancient superheroes, too. Looking back, historians generally agree that Mu is one of the most persistent archaeological myths of all time. It's a testament to the power of storytelling and to our never-ending fascination with lost worlds. As one historian put it, Mu is a fantasy that refuses to die simply because it's more exciting than the truth. And funnily enough, Mu is basically the flat Earth of lost civilizations. Despite all the scientific evidence disproving it, some people still believe it's out there somewhere. Because who doesn't love a good mystery? And there you have it, the lost continent of Mu. We started with Augustus Le Plongeon's wild translations, watched James Churchward turn it into a global phenomenon, and ended with a legend that refuses to sink. It's a story of imagination, misinterpretation, and just the right amount of creative writing. Who knew that bad translations and creative storytelling could invent an entire civilization? It's a reminder that sometimes the most fascinating history is the stuff people just make up. If you enjoyed this deep dive into historical fiction, history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. There's more absurdly true and occasionally not so true history coming your way. And remember, if someone claims they discovered an ancient civilization with no evidence, maybe take it with a continent-sized grain of salt. This is Infinitia Verity, where history gets weird. See you next time.